So welcome back to Cross Country. Is the mainstream media doing a disservice to the American people? A new poll finds that 76% of Americans say that journalists should always strive to give equal coverage. But in that same poll, only 44% of journalists say the same thing. Now, this comes at a time when the trust in the media and overall news consumption rates are in the gutter. So I took to the streets to find out what the average day American thinks of the media at large. Watch. Is the media doing a good job?
Not really.
Do you think the media is doing a great job?
Not with the Biden presidency, no.
Do you think the media is doing a good job in telling the truth to the American people?
No.
No?
It's all a lie.
I think they're honest. I think they have to use a tactic to pull the people in to listen to them. So they honest, but they honest in a roundabout way.
Do you feel like they tell the truth, or do they have their own agenda?
They, of course, have their own agenda.
Well, sometimes there's people making up any kind of rumor.
Fake news?
Yeah.
They lead people in their own direction instead of the direction they need to go.
Where do you get your news from? Do you watch TV? Do you look at the newspapers, online, social media? Where do you get it from?
I no longer look at the newspapers. I go online, or I get information from my coworkers, and I just do a lot of soul searching myself.
Where do you get your information from?
Newspapers.
Sometimes I'll get my news from TikTok because I'm mainly on there.
What about you?
Instagram.
Twitter?
My family.
Instagram.
Instagram?
Oh yeah. My dad watching TV.
Where do you get your news from?
I get it from you. I get it from your colleagues.
Somebody's watching Cross Country. Back again to discuss Joe Concha and Kevin Wallen. Thank y'all so much, gentlemen. As you can see, the young people get all their information from social media, and the crusty adults are still reading the newspaper. Joe, you monitor the media for a living. Were you surprised of the media saying they shouldn't cover both sides? I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, we know that they do that, but I was kind of surprised that they admitted to it, right?
Indeed, Lawrence. And watching your package, or at least the clips from it, from that man on the street, that was from New York. It wasn't from Alabama or Wyoming or from Texas, right? This is the perception in a very liberal area that looked like, where were you, Union Square, like downtown around 14th Street?
Well played. You got it, Union Square.
Okay, used to work down there, so I'm like, oh, I know that place.
He knows his New York.
But look. Exactly. I lived there for exactly a year before going to Hoboken because they had more bars per square mile. Long story, Kevin, but we'll talk about it another time. The point is, I am old enough to remember when NBC's Lester Holt said while accepting the Edward R. Murrow Award, all right? Let me share this quote with you guys. "Fairness is overrated," he said, unquote, "and both sides should not be explored on issues." And I'm unfortunately old enough to remember when CNN's Don Lemon, said this with a straight face while saying that CNN doesn't do opinion, but just straight news. And I hope you're sitting down, quote, "Republicans are doing something that is very dangerous to our society, and we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that as Americans, we must acknowledge that as journalists, because if we don't, we are not doing our jobs." In other words, reporting both sides means reporting the conservative side of a perspective on things like abortion, Second Amendment, government spending, education. The point is that, there are two sides to every story.
So, Kevin,
and if you're a journalist, you would explore both. And these guys are saying no.
All right, Kevin, so
Sorry,
where did Joe go wrong with this? Is he right on this or wrong?
I don't think Joe's necessarily wrong. I mean, that's why I love being on this panel with Joe, is we can have this exchange of ideas and talk about both sides of hot issues facing this country. But I think those numbers are reflective of just the general decline of the American people with regards to our institutions, when it comes to the government, when it even comes to our military, and a lack of trust that we see in these institutions, including the media, that has been happening over time, that erosion of trust, which I think is fundamentally dangerous. And I think journalists have to come clean with whether they have biases from the right or the left when they're presenting stories. I think the local news actually does a really good job of that, straight over home plate for the most part, at all of our different Fox affiliates around the country, of just presenting what's in front of those cities that they're reporting in, because we need to restore trust in those institutions, especially with the media.
I guess what I would say, Joe, don't you think the media is responsible, though, for the divide and the lack of trust in our institutions because they don't cover stories fairly?
Well, I won't answer it from my own perspective. I'll go to Gallup, which found that something like 84% of Americans, all right, an overwhelming majority, thinks that the media bears some responsibility for divide in this country, all right? So that's the perception, that therefore the media is taking a side, pushing a narrative, and they're trying to divide. And when they do that, that brings clicks and that brings ratings. And look, 80% of independent voters, according to Axios, think that news stories are being reported, at least fake or false, sometimes, and the people that are doing it, the journalists that are doing it, know they are pushing that narrative. In other words, it's not human error, they're literally trying to push something on the news consumer. And read Ari Fleischer's new book, by the way. It shows that the White House press corps, Lawrence, reporters attending the daily briefings rank 12-1 Democrat to Republican. That is telling.
I was listening to him when Brian killed me, and I saw the same exact thing. Kevin, final word to you, brother.
Well, I think Joe points out an important thing, that the incentive structure of our media is all lopsided in terms of those clicks and those ratings, as opposed to those long-form pieces that we need more of, that investigative journalism that is so critically important to the public dialogue, and not just the ratings and not just the clicks on articles.
That's why we're out there every single day just talking with people, and people can decide what they think about it. Joe and Kevin, we always thank you guys.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.